Hey everybody, welcome in, welcome in. I am so excited to be hosting today. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Sarah Brazier. I am the co-founder of Demo, and I am a huge fan of Amplemarket. And I'm super excited for today's product demo and for them to just be dropping a ton of knowledge bombs just about prospecting in general. But this product release is super cool. So as folks trickle in, I would love to know, where are you calling in from? Are you calling in from North America? I'm in New York City right now. I know there are some people on this call who are probably calling in from California. Do we have folks from Europe dialing in? Do we have folks from India? Where are you all at? Let us know in the chat. I see Joe is from Allentown, Pennsylvania. I see a ton of San Francisco, Portugal, the West Coast, Canada. Woohoo, Canada. I love to go skiing. Greenville, South Carolina. My mom lives in South Carolina. She lives in Beaufort, though. Spain, Colombia, New York. Awesome. This is super great. Miami. Woo. Love to be in Miami right now. Go swimming in the beach. It's starting to get cold in New York. Portugal, Italy, awesome. So many great things. So I'm curious, for the folks who are trickling in, what's your role? Do we have AEs, SDRs, SDR managers, AE managers, VPs of sales? Like, what are you all doing? CEO, AE, director of sales, BD manager, head of RevOps. Cool, we've got a ton of different titles on the call. This is super exciting. I think there's like a little bit, I've already seen a sneak peek of this, so I think there's like a little bit of everything for everyone here. VPs of sales are going to love this. Marketers are going to love this. But I definitely think that SDRs and AEs are going to love this the most. RevOps, this is going to take like a lot off your plate, I think. So not to give too much away, but that's awesome. Cool. So as folks are trickling in, I feel like we can probably get started with an agenda real quick. Mika, do you mind sharing the second slide and we can just walk everyone through what they should expect for today?
Not at all. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. So just so you guys are aware, there will be a recording of this webinar for you. So if you have to drop off early, totally fine. You will get a recording, but I would definitely stick around because we're going to do Q&A and answer all your questions. When I saw a sneak peek, there was a ton. So there is, if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom, it says Q&A, click on that and start putting your questions in there. So we've already done our welcome. We're going to talk through the mission. We're going to go basically through like what is going on, what is the state of the art of selling right now and of prospecting. And then you guys are going to learn a little bit about what this really cool product actually looks like. And then we'll have tons of time for discussion. Make sure you're throwing those questions as they come up in the Q&A, and I will try to get to everyone's. I've got a couple of my own on the back burner, but I think yours are probably more interesting than mine. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Mika, and Mika is going to walk us through the mission and the state of the art. And we're going to learn some things. You guys
Thank you,
ready?
Sarah.
Put a one in the chat if you're ready.
Thank you, Sarah. This is a great introduction. By the way, the last question, I don't know if you should check it out. It's a one question for you, FYI. So I think you'll like it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. I truly appreciate the introduction here. So welcome you all. Thank you so much for being here, for spending a little bit of your morning, afternoon, evening with us. I'm calling from San Francisco. That's why I'm saying morning, because I'm still drinking my morning coffee. But yeah, today we kind of like wanted to introduce a new product that we've been working on. And before we do that, and before we get into a demo and a discussion panel Q&A, I kind of wanted to just restate some of the reasons why we are working on Amplemarket and the products that we're building, and wanted to give you a state of the art of the sales space alongside like our solution. So again, Sarah, thank you for the introduction. Sarah is going to be hosting this event, and myself and my two co-founders, Luis and João, are going to be kind of here to showcase, to talk about the new product, to answer any questions that you might have. First and foremost, really, one thing that one of our core beliefs at Amplemarket, really, like for us, the three founders, is that we believe that growth is a massive driver for prosperity, right? So we believe that anything that actually drives more growth, that catalyzes growth, is actually a net benefit for human beings, for humanity just in general. And that's why we wake up in the morning. Like that's why we focus on building these great products that allow companies to connect with one another. So like really what we want to foster more is trade. We want to create more exchanges between entities. And these entities for us are just our customers, are just B2B SaaS companies, right? But if you make that happen, you're creating a triple win situation. Like you're creating a win situation for the buyer, for the seller, but also for everybody else around them. And so if you think about like prosperity, right? So like, we're all very, very lucky to be living in the world that we live in today, right? So like we're massively prosperous. Because if you think back, like, you know, we used to be cavemen. And so clearly the world is not zero sum. Otherwise, we would still be cavemen. And so we were able to create all of these beautiful things, like all of these great computers, beautiful buildings around us. And so everything about that was actually, we believe, one of the main drivers was trade. And trade and sales are kind of like synonyms. So we like to have this geeky way of thinking about sales and trade. Like if you think back to the avenue of like modern civilization, 10,000 BC, where like kind of like the first tribes actually decided to settle down and kind of like produce wheat. That was really only possible because tribes could actually trade with one another. So trade really is very much tied to the avenue of like modern civilization as we know it. And then from then on, every single like technology that was created was actually tied to making trade faster. Cities, right? These marketplaces, money was invented in 5000 BC, and money was just a new technology to make trade between human beings, between tribes, between corporations easier. And so if you fast forward from like these early tribes to the early merchants all the way to the modern sales teams, and if we just do a zoom in terms of like the last 30 years, we could actually, one thing that I believe is like sales teams are the unsung heroes of prosperity. That's like, I have like that core belief, really. I think if you take a look at S&P 500 quarterly earnings and you take a look at like the massive revenues and ARR, there's actually driven by sales teams. It's actually fairly impressive. And if you make their lives easier, you're bound to actually increasing prosperity. But just double clicking on the 1990s to now, it's actually super interesting to think about the 1990s. And I know that Russell that just asked the last question here to Sarah. I think Russell, you're very, very familiar with like the evolution of sales. But if you think back about the 1990s, like it's fairly interesting to think about the fact that to actually do a trade, sales was very much in person, was field sales. So if I'm based in California and I want to sell to a company in Paris, I actually needed to transport my body from here to Paris to actually talk with my buyer. So we could all agree that that's like a suboptimal way of doing sales, right? So like if you need to transport your body always from one place to the other, it's not like the most optimal way of doing sales. Then the 2000s, a new technology comes along. The internet is like mass adopted, and all of a sudden sales becomes digital. And with this, sales teams adapt, and the sales productivity just increases a lot because now you can actually do one-to-many sales. So you don't need to transport atoms. You can actually just like send bits from one place to the other. So it's so much easier to actually distribute your software. It's so much easier for you to create trust with another human being via an internet connection. And again, sales teams become more productive. And in the theme of productivity, the 2010s come along. And then two massive changes happen there. This one-to-many distribution becomes automated. So you have like data platforms, you have engagement platforms, and all of a sudden you can actually automate a bunch of like your workflows. And sales also becomes social, right? So I would say like 80% of deals closed today actually have a social touch point as part of them, like with LinkedIn and Yammers of the early 2010s. And today we're actually at the avenue of a new change, but I've kind of like wanted to just focus on these three main changes that I've mentioned here, because sales teams have been very resilient and they've always adapted, right? But today, we still have a lot of problems with sales, right? I think we would all agree here that sales is not perfect. Although it's been getting easier, the productivity of sales reps has been increasing. I think it feels like we're hitting a plateau. And that plateau, I kind of like, there's many reports and I can actually share them with you. But if you take a look at sales and growth for the past 4 years, it really seems that sales teams are struggling. Like more and more reps are actually struggling to hit their quotas, right? And so this is actually translating into declining growth rates for companies, public and private. One of the ways you also see this is kind of like massive shutdowns of like private SMBs, like startups actually shutting down. Even like for mid-market enterprise companies, their growth rates have been dwindling over time. This is actually just like, again, a symptom of the problems that we see with sales today and this plateau that we're hitting. And again, there's many reasons for this, and feel free to challenge me. But like one of the things that I think is actually driving this is that again, like with that productivity, with that automation, we focus solely on doing more stuff. We focus on quantity instead of quality of activities that we need to do. And so, like if we draw like a correlation between quantity of activity and success, really that correlation will break at a certain point. The rep that is doing 1 million activities per day is not the rep that is actually being the most successful. And there's a lot of invisible activity that we are not capturing today that we should capture and that we should value. But because the way CRMs are built, because the way our RevOps teams have set up like our workflows, we only measure quantity of activity. And so like we drive for activity, right? So that's why again the old world like of like spray and pray feels kind of broken. And so this is actually leading to a lot of problems. Like so we're repricing all of our channels, the email channel, the phone channel. Again, if you think about like parallel dialers, they're just a way of doing more activity instead of doing more quantity, more quality of activity. And none of this is actually buyer-centric. And this buyer-centricity, I don't mean to call you out again, Russell, but like you were the first person that actually got this in my brain. It's kind of like, as sellers, we always think about driving the sale. We never think about the buyer journey. And I've talked with so many leaders in sales, and so seldomly they've told me about like the buyer journey, just understanding what accounts are in market to buy and which we should be reaching out to. And we basically today, the way we operate is that we run our TAM, we give accounts to reps, and we just ask them break into those accounts. But again, they're actually just exhausting their TAM every quarter. And this kind of like doesn't work because we're never thinking whether or not they're in the market to buy. And all of this is actually powered by old school technology. Again, these technologies that have been built in the 2010s, right? So like when the avenue of automation came along, right? So outreach is like was built in 2013, 2014. And again, we're 10 years later, like 10 years later, like it's like something needs to change, and software needs to be more outcomes based, really more a lot smarter than it used to be. And again, I'm going to tie this to some of the things that I'm going to introduce here Amplemarket with in a second. And so for us and our solution, and the reason why we've been working here on building these solutions is that we believe 6 years ago, we believe that like so much of like these workflows for sales teams are so broken, right? They should be easier. It's like, I feel like, and look, my background is not in sales. I needed to learn sales the hard way, but I felt that I was doing so many things that were actually not adding any value. I was like, dang, like this should be much easier. And I was actually operating like 10 different tools. And I was like, oh my God, now I need to actually learn all of these tools instead of like learning my craft, which is like doing sales. And we believe at Amplemarket that AI, at the time machine learning, should be augmenting and empowering the human, right? Giving them more time, because trade ultimately is still like a very human endeavor. And just recently, there was this report that came out about this new technology, AI, right? Which is getting like widely adopted. And I'm just going to read this out loud, but with AI, sales teams will no longer need to spend endless hours researching leads or prepping for calls. AI will be able to do it in seconds. Reps won't have to suss out the readiness of potential customers because AI will have automatically compiled a ranked list of prime buyers and will keep it constantly updated. And when I read this, like, dang, this is exactly what we've been focusing on for these past few years. Like every single feature that we build into Amplemarket is really to help like buyers and sellers, BDRs, SDRs, and AEs really understand who's in market to buy and make their lives way easier. And we've thought a lot about this, and we wanted to introduce you to Duo. Like Duo is your first AI Copilot for sales teams. So think about Duo as being your individual AI sales assistant. Like I like to think about it as kind of like a Pokemon or a Tamagotchi that is like very individual to every single one of you. Duo knows everything about you. He knows who you are. He knows your company. He knows the accounts that you want to target. He knows how you talk. He knows like your voice. And Luis will show you all of these things. But your Duo is kind of like very individualized to you. And your Duo is going to be working around the clock to help you with prioritization of accounts, prioritization of personas, and crafting the most bespoke possible sequences to all of your leads, right? Duo is going to help you focus on quality instead of quantity. A few core beliefs that we have that are at the core here of Duo is that Duo is built for AI and human collaboration. We believe in augmenting the humans, enhancing humans. We believe that technology should always be here to empower humans, not to displace them. So like we don't believe in displacing the SDR or the BDR or the AE at all. Duo is built on top of like an all-in-one platform. So Duo is able to collect data, signals. It's able to actually complex workflow on the engagement side. Duo is smart. It's capable of social selling and acting like you, and it's actually built with deliverability top of mind. So Duo can actually collect data every 24 hours for your accounts and is able to suggest the next best steps that can be like very complex workflows. Duo will help you focus on timing and relevancy in sales. What I said before, focus again on the buyer journey. Really understand which accounts are in market. And every single quarter, only 25% of your accounts will be in market. So Duo will help you kind of prioritize those accounts, find the right persona, and then find the right signal and collect all of these and really create like the most bespoke, unique, one-of-one approach for that person. Duo is going to be capable of like continuous improvement. It will learn from you. It will learn from the way that you handle objections. It will learn from like your CRM and which ones are actually, which opportunities are actually turning into customers. And it will become better over time. Again, for the Pokemon analogy, it's like your Pikachu, well, Pikachu is not a good example, but like any other Pokemon that actually transforms into the next level. And the most important thing that I think here is like Duo is going to be able to empower sales teams everywhere. So if you think about enablement, right? And imagine like you've like worked on the US market, you've built a lot of objection handling, you've built a lot of value propositions, a lot of case studies, you've done so much work to sell into the US market. Now all of a sudden you want to expand into the Dutch, the Colombian, and the French markets, right? All of a sudden these markets, they require you to speak their local languages. Well, with Duo, you could just like type one sentence, give them one instruction and say like, actually, I'm a Spanish seller, I'm a French seller, or I'm a Dutch seller. And all of a sudden your Duo understands everything about your company with just one sentence. All of the work that you've put in to actually the brain, the operations of your sales team become available to your newest rep that is based in French. And with all this being said, like I think the proof is always in the pudding. So I think you should take a look at it. So I'll give on the mic to Luis here.
Thank you, Mika. No pressure. Let me just share my screen. Give me just 1 second. There we go. There we go. Can you see my screen? Perfect.
Yes.
Just move these out of the way. Okay, perfect. There we go. First of all, thank you so much, everyone that joined the webinar. Today, I'm really, really excited to show you Duo and what we believe to be the future of selling. And so Duo is the first AI Sales Copilot that really helps, as Mika was saying, teams find and connect with their next customers. So Duo kind of gives superpowers to reps and allows them to really focus on the most relevant signals, right? The ones that are tied to buying intent and that are happening every single day for your book of business or for the accounts that you care. And it will capture all of these signals and then bring them to you as a rep. And then it will also actually create bespoke one-to-one sequences for that specific prospect. So Duo is basically the first end-to-end AI copilot because it will not just capture all these signals, but it also can act on your behalf and reach out to prospects. And so let's take a look at the product and do a quick demo. And for a second, I'd like you to imagine that you are a sales rep starting your day and you're logging in to find this morning feed that Duo has been hard at work overnight to create. And basically Duo curated this personalized list of high intent leads and signals within your book of business. And so Duo has search everywhere. So just take a look at some of these signals for a moment. So Duo has looked for signals such as, a past customer, as we can see here, who has moved to a new company that perfectly fits your ideal customer profile, someone that is evaluating another product in your space, a person that wrote a G2 review about one of your competitors, wishing for a better tool, a decision maker visiting your profile on LinkedIn or even your website, someone that is following your company on LinkedIn or commenting on one of your company posts, or someone that is asking for recommendations for tools in your space on a relevant Slack group, something that we see happening more and more. people going to Slack groups and these types of communities as a way to get recommendations on what to use, and many, many more signals. So Duo isn't just collecting these signals, it's using them to create these highly relevant one-to-one outreach sequences. And we can take a look at some of these examples. So for instance, if we go back to the top and we actually take a look at this case for Maria, that she was a past customer. She's now a senior business development manager that joined Profit Room recently, and also used Amplemarket in her previous role at Opti. And so we have here information about Maria. We have here more information about the company. We have a detailed information about the signal, right? Why is Maria showing up here? Because she was a previous customer, and then she moved to a company within your ICP. And look at how Duo created this bespoke one-to-one multi-channel sequence that actually starts with engaging and connecting with Maria on LinkedIn completely automatically, followed by a super personalized email that is actually addressing the fact that Maria was at joined Profit Room and was at Opti in the past, used Amplemarket, was super successful. Probably it makes sense to bring the tool to our new company. And look at the follow-up, as we are actually referencing the original reason why we reached out. And this is actually one of my favorite follow-ups that Duo can use. So Duo can actually use AI to clone your voice and then turn any piece of text into a voice note, then you can send out via LinkedIn. Not sure if any of you ran into these voice notes on LinkedIn. These are a super and they're explored way to connect with prospects. They are super personalized notes. I'm just going to show you here what they look like. I think everyone will be able to hear these.
Hi, Maria.
But
I wanted to personally congratulate you on your new role at Profit Room. Given your experience at Opti, I thought you might find value in some of the tools we offer that helped you there. Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
And so this is basically just clone my voice, used it to create this personalized note on LinkedIn that it's going to send out automatically. And on LinkedIn, you can send all sorts of touches, including connection requests, messages, engaging with someone's LinkedIn content. And so we can take a look at a few more examples. For instance, Henry here. Henry actually wrote a G2 review about one of our competitors, and we can actually go here and see the exact G2 review that we're talking about. So as you can see, Henry wrote a G2 review about outreach, in which he actually complained about some issues with a random incoming calls, so some issues with their dialer. And so Duo is going to actually use those complaints as a reason to reach out to Henry. And again, the sequence completely personalized, starts with some LinkedIn touch points, and then Duo is going to mention that we saw the G2 review about outreach and that there were some issues with random incoming calls, and Amplemarket could actually help you with that. And see, like, look at, for instance, even the follow-ups, how personalized they are. We're actually using the follow-ups to bring some social proof, pulling case studies from the website, and making it super, super relevant and personalized. And one of the things that you can ask yourself is like, how does Duo have all this information? How does Duo know everything about my business? And well, this level of personalization, it's only possible because as soon as you sign up for Duo, we'll actually go through your website, the web, and your CRM to learn every single thing about your company. And then we're going to be using that information to create this sort of common brain for your sales team, this kind of library of information about your competitors, about your personas. As you can see here, we have a ton of information about what your company does, who are the personas that you're selling to, the case studies and the success stories, information about your competitors, as we can see here, where we have also battle cards on how to sell against these competitors. This is all been automatically generated by Duo. Of course, you can tweak things, you can add new competitors if you want, but this has already been here since you start using Amplemarket. And with Duo, it's also super simple to set up custom signals. And by the way, one thing that I forgot to show you, but some of these instructions, yeah, you can also customize here. So these fields are all editable. If you want, for instance, to teach Duo your selling style or adapt Duo's tone of voice, you can do it here and really make Duo your personal assistant. And so setting up, like the signals that I showed you are just a few examples, but you can add your own custom signals for Duo, and it's super simple to do it. So for instance, a couple weeks ago, we went to SaaStr, and we launched actually Duo at SaaStr in San Francisco. And one of the things that I was doing was I was setting up a signal that would look for people that are actually mentioning SaaStr or that are attending SaaStr on LinkedIn. And then every time Duo saw a post with someone within our ICP mentioning that they are attending SaaStr, we would then send them a sequence trying to connect and book something at the venue. And as you can see, this is super simple. I just had to put here the keywords and then add filters to filter just for people within my ICP. And then in terms of distribution rules, I would just have to select the team member that we would sell these leads to and send these leads to myself. But Duo actually doesn't stop here. So Duo is not just taking care of like analyzing all these buying intent signals, creating sequences. Duo also follows you to your inbox. So as soon as you start getting responses from prospects, Duo also lives there. So as an example, I was doing some outbound and I reached out to Jim, and Jim actually responded saying that he wants to meet and is asking for a one-pager. And so as you can see here, as soon as I open this thread, Duo has already created a draft response with a link to our one-pager. And it's also adding a link to my calendar, I believe. Yeah, exactly. And it's not just placing this draft, which I can then simply approve, or if I want, I can just edit something. It's also adding the follow-ups, right? And then what I need to do as a rep is just review and then hit send. Exactly the same as the Duo leads that we're seeing before. You can edit everything, just review, you can dismiss it or hit send. And so Duo is more than just a tool. So it's actually the future of sales. Completely AI powered and human refined. If you'd like to learn more about Duo and do actually an in-depth demo with your team to show how Duo can transform the way you do sales today, feel free to reach out. But that's all for today. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Luis. We have a ton of questions that people have asked. A lot of them have been answered so far, but I will jump in with this first question that hasn't been answered yet. How is the AI voice message created? Is it created internally? Oop, it just disappeared. Is it created internally at Amplemarket or sent to a partner company for processing? I'm most curious about the security around your own AI generated voice to make sure that the AI voice is thoroughly protected.
I can answer that. Thank you, Sarah. So basically, we are partnering with a provider to help us with that, a company called 11 Labs. And so you actually, to clone your voice, you just have to read like basically 2 emails, and then we'll transfer that information securely to 11 Labs, and they will use that voice that sample to clone your voice, and then you can use it within Amplemarket.
I love that. Awesome. Bob Welsh asked, what is the learning curve, and do you provide training and support?
I can take it if you want.
Can you take it, Mika?
Yeah. So the learning curve, so far at least, like we've been using Duo internally for a few months now, and the best story here is kind of like we hired Sarah, our newest SDR in London, And Sarah was able to generate 2 opportunities with key accounts week 1 of her job at Amplemarket because we set up like Duo for her. It's kind of the learning curve is, and we think a lot of like the way we think about software is like sometimes like when you think about B2B software, you think that you're selling to a company. We really think about the end users and crafting great experiences for our end users. So we think about the software that they're used to using. So for us, like if you take a look at Duo, it's kind of like we compare it to the Spotify day list. So if you're used to actually using Spotify, the day list of songs, it's kind of like now you have a lid list every single morning when you log in. And then like the blue button and the white button, we compare that to like Tinder, like you're just swiping right or left and you're deciding which leads you want to date. And then all of a sudden you have matches, right? So you have some people that actually engage with you. These are going to be your matches. And so far the learning curve has been like pretty low and pretty fast. People get up and running super fast, but we do provide resources, and you have like if you have any questions, our customer success team will always be here to help.
Awesome. That was one of Brandon's questions is your CSM at Amplemarket able to help out the team,
Yeah.
etc. So it sounds like the answer is yes, you will get custom support. I've got another question from Trevor. How are you ensuring the accuracy of the signals? How do you test and iterate? I don't know, Luis, maybe do you want to answer that one?
Yeah. In terms of like, I find it super interesting because, you know, when it comes to Amplemarket, the fact that we are an all-in-one platform allows us to, you know, really understand what's going on in the entire funnel, right? When we provide you a signal, and since you're going to actually use Amplemarket to reach out to that person, we can actually understand which signals are generating more responses, are generating more meetings, and at the end of the day, you can even understand which signals are generating more revenue, right? And so you can create these really interesting feedback loops where Duo can actually be smarter as you keep using it, right? As it collects more data, Duo can understand, okay, this signal is working better than that signal, so we can focus more on that. And this feedback loop is something that you can only do it with an all-in-one platform, and that we see as a super important part of Amplemarket, and that will help Duo become even better as time goes by.
I'll just add something to what Luis said, is that we know sometimes, though, for instance, intent can be a black box, where sometimes you're buying a product that is saying, hey, I'm going to sell you leads that are in the market for this, but then you're trying to understand, okay, but where exactly are you getting this data from? For us, like, we try to be as transparent as we can. And so as Luis showed you, you can look at a cadence, you can click on it, and then you can audit where we were able to capture that signal, right? You can click onto the LinkedIn post or the G2 review or the news link, where you can find exactly the information that our system was able to gather. And then that caused that prospect to be featured on your Duo home base. But so we try to make it as transparent as possible, so that you actually understand, okay, this is where this is coming from, and I can validate, and maybe you can also adjust Duo to say, hey, like this signal, actually, I'm going to need to add these filters because otherwise it can be too noisy. So yeah.
Yeah, as an example, for instance, what we can see here, this is a signal about someone that is engaging with a post, you know, supposedly about pipeline generation, right? And I can go, which is relevant for us in our case because it's our Duo. I can just easily go here on LinkedIn and kind of audit, you know, either the type of engagement of the prospect and also the posts. So I can go here and see exactly, okay, this is in fact someone that is giving tips on how to build pipeline in 2024. Everything is fully auditable. And you can, you know, either use it or dismiss it or tweak the message that Duo suggested. But our idea is to give full visibility to the users of the signal and also the recommended actions.
Nice. Joe, I think you're answering this question right now in the chat, but someone is asking, how does it handle rep territories? Do all reps get notifications of all LinkedIn likes or just those in their territory? Same question for industries. So how do you get that set up?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go for it, Luis.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, and something that we have to think about, because it's crucial to make sure that no one is stepping into each other's territory. So when you're doing the setup for the signals that I was showing a few minutes ago, one really important part is these filters. part where you can actually, you can filter based on your book of business or your territory. So everything, those fields are available here. You can search based on location. We also allow you to filter based on CRM reports. And then you're going to be using that to kind of divide the book of businesses between the reps. And then once you do this division, the only thing that you need to do, for instance, is distribute based on CRM ownership, right? And then we'll make sure that we are only delivering signals for accounts that you are the owner of in the CRM. And so basically that's how we allow that the rules are followed when it comes to account ownership.
Just a quick note here, like this is where, like, remember, like I was mentioning, the all-in-one platform, Duo being built on top of that all-in-one platform. This is really where that really shines. The fact that you've, like, Duo has all of these capabilities, the data capabilities, integration capabilities. And so this is really why Duo becomes so powerful, because it's actually built, it's just the pinnacle of that platform.
I'm getting this question a lot, both in the chat and in the Q&A, but lots of people want to know pricing. Lots of people want to know how they can start to, try Duo. So, Mika, I feel like that's kind of lands in your wheelhouse. What do people need to do to get their hands on this tool?
Yeah. So very good question. So to get the hands on it, like, again, if you're an existing customer, connect with your CSM. You get to try it out for free. If you're a new customer, just reach out, just request a demo. We'll set you up also for free so that you can actually try it out. Like, again, the proof is always in the pudding. Pricing wise, again, for those of you that are familiar with Amplemarket's bundle pricing, we have slightly increased our bundle pricing by around like 20%, but Duo is really a no-brainer, really. Like, it's going to be between $3,000 to $4,500 per year per user, which is, much cheaper than anything else that you see out there. There's actually selling you AI capabilities, and we have many stories here that we'll be sharing, like, in the coming weeks, in terms of like people getting to success and validating ROI within just a few days of using Duo.
Love it. A lot of people are asking integration questions. Maybe Joa, you can answer. HubSpot, Salesforce, what other CRMs does Duo and Amplemarket integrate with?
Yeah, so Salesforce and HubSpot are by far the most popular amongst our users. We're constantly looking for, okay, what's the next CRM that we're going to integrate with? We also integrate with Zendesk Sell, CRM by Zendesk. But we are, as I said, we have an integrations team that is constantly figuring out what is our next integration. We would consider integrating with more CRMs, but by far the most popular for us and kind of the strongest integrations are with Salesforce and HubSpot.
Okay, awesome. So those are the more technical, like, how do I get my hands on those questions? I've got some more questions about product. Trevor says, is accuracy and other metrics isolated to the local company environment, or are there certain market customer-wide signals that are somehow shared in a anonymized way so everyone has a benefit? I don't know who's the best person to answer that question.
I can take that one. So today we don't really, we don't have a section in our product where we're sharing those types of analytics that are collected across all of our user base. Our CSMs try to do part of that job where they will try to advise our customers on kind of how to best think about approaching their ICP and the types of strategies that we've seen work best over the years. But right now we don't have that exposed in our product. But it's, of course, like one of the advantages of having a compound solution like ours that sees the sales process from beginning, right, all the way from prospecting to having a meeting scheduled on your calendar to that opportunity converting to close one, right? So we are able to collect a lot of signal, and our system is constantly learning on what works best for what audiences in different geographies. And so we have a lot of that data. We just are not yet exposing it in our product.
Got it. Another question comes from Iker. If I don't have info about new prospects, how can Duo personalize the sequence and messages? Is it able to get that information from LinkedIn to craft the personalized messages?
So it is, like, we have our copywriter product that allows you, if you just know, I want to reach out to this person, there might not be an immediate signal that I'm going to be going after. You can just, it's as easy as, for instance, going to their LinkedIn profile and hitting generate a sequence, and then our AI copywriter will take care of that. And so we do have that ability.
Awesome. I love it. There's a ton of people who are super excited about this, talking about how amazing the product is. And they're just, this is the new gold standard, is what Meyer says. So pretty exciting stuff. Let's see, what other questions do we have in here? Julio asks, how does it compare to the 11x SDR/Alice? So other competitors in the space who are coming up with similar things. Joe,
Yeah.
you're not in your head, so I'm just gonna have you answer the question.
Yeah, no, actually, we have strong feelings about that naturally, but we have a significantly different vision from some of those other folks. We are not pitching that you should replace your entire sales team with AI, right? We are very much in the business of building tools for sales reps. We believe in empowering reps, and one of the things that Jeff Bezos has this quote that when he's thinking about building companies and what products to work on, he thinks about, okay, what do we believe that is going to be true 10 years from now, right? And for us, like, we believe that 10 years from now, B2B sales is still going to be a lot about human to human interactions, right? It's still going to be something that involves building trust and really getting to know the person on the other side. And so we are in the business of building tools for sales reps, which we believe 10 years from now are still going to be around. And so we're not pitching the vision of replacing your entire sales team with an AI. We do believe that there's some sales motions that you can get to full autopilot, especially the ones that are just not as noisy. And so we're actually going to be rolling out in the next few weeks the ability to put some of your motions on full autopilot, but we're still always going to have a human in the loop for a lot of things. And so, yeah, so that is a fundamental difference between us and some of those other tools.
But by the way, like, and just that answers like that one question about like what do you want to improve in Duo? It's kind of like adding a few more autopilot capabilities in the coming weeks. Again, as we like to say, this is like our V0 of Duo. Like, stay tuned for more. We have so many ideas, and we're collecting so much feedback from existing customers and users. And the other to just like to tie it again to the initial question around like AI SDR 11x, right? What I know from a fact is that the people that are demoing them are also demoing us alongside other things. And what I know is that we've displaced some of their customers to Amplemarket over this past 4 weeks. So what I know is that, like, if you promise a hoverboard, everybody will want a hoverboard. Now, delivering the hoverboard is another question. Yeah, so, you know, as a buyer, you should always like think about testing and trialing all of these platforms, and, you know, always make informed decisions. That's why we make it super easy for any new customer to test out Amplemarket and compare it to any existing platform out there.
I kind of think of the way Amplemarket is approaching Duo. It's like Tony Stark and Iron Man in his suit plus Jarvis.
Exactly,
Right.
good one.
So, you know, like Tony Stark he's a genius. He's an amazing inventor, and he's super charismatic, and he can get a lot of stuff done. But when he puts on the Iron Man suit, he's suddenly like so much stronger, so much faster, so much more capable. And then he's got, which is basically like the Amplemarket platform. And then Jarvis is like this additional thing that's able to run a whole bunch of other stuff in the background, and he can give directions to. But the point is that it's still being run by Tony Stark, who has a moral compass, who's able to make human assessments, who's able to say, no, this person's a good person, or no, that person's not a good person to prospect, if he's prospecting instead of, you know, fighting villains. So that's kind of how
that's a great analogy.
It.
That's a great analogy. And when we were actually thinking about branding, etc., like we talked about exactly Jarvis and the Iron Man suit, and it's kind of like you jump into that suit and you level up like your powers, right? So it's kind of like a rep with Amplemarket, you level them up, right? That's basically what we're offering, that Iron Man suit to every rep.
And so I think that like at the end of the day, there will probably be less salespeople because they're more leveled up salespeople, but they'll be far more excellent. And it's really about who's able to take advantage of the AI and leverage it to the best of their abilities. So that's why I'm so happy that there are a lot of RevOps people on this call, because I think like how you set up the back end of Amplemarket, how you're prompting it, what signals you're looking for, how you're thinking about what the AI needs to be doing. So much of this stuff is you're only as good as the questions that you ask, the prompts that you give, and the data that you're built on. So that's my 2 cents as the
100%.
host in the background.
I love that. Like, can I just challenge you for a second there, like on something that said, like you mentioned, like there's going to be less salespeople. I don't really believe that, and let me maybe explain the future that I'm envisioning here. Basically,
Yeah.
like you have like this, like AI is a really a brand new technology, and there's like a new report that came out just last week about the adoption of AI in personal lives and work lives. And there's all of this narrative about like more companies being created, more 10 people companies becoming billion-dollar companies in the future, right? So I think AI makes just company creation and software creation so much easier. It really reduces the barrier. So what happens if we actually propagate that into the future? Basically, think about companies as nodes, right? So you have like all of these big corporations that are just big nodes, but like if you have like AI, and it's actually so much easier to create companies. Amplemarket, we see it as kind of like a very democratizing solution. So we help SMBs actually get in touch with their buyers, because if they're actually using marketing budgets, they would be priced out by the big corporations, right? Because like if you're competing against them, you're just screwed. But now, like if you can actually go directly to consumer, that really gives you a chance as an SMB that is getting started to actually find distribution. And if you think about the future, think about these nodes. And so like you'll have way more nodes. So you'll have a lot more companies. Thus, all of these companies will require someone to be selling for them. And thus, like you have a lot more nodes that you need to connect. Thus, you'll have a lot more sellers on both sides trying to connect a much more noisy world. So you think about it, it's like a big bubble, and just break that bubble into a million bubbles. And now all of a sudden, all of these possible connections between corporations become available. And I think that, to me, maybe indicates that there's going to be smaller sales teams, more productive sales teams, but breaking through the noise is going to become even harder. But that's just like my take.
I definitely think that breaking through the noise is going to become harder. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, that I like that take. I think it's super interesting. Let's see. Let's take a look. What other questions are coming in? Someone is asking, how is Duo relevant for high ticket B2B sales where you cannot find a lot of users and signals, and buyer centric consists of 20 plus people? So that kind of goes back to what you were talking about, all these small teams trying to connect with other small teams. Mika, can you
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when we're thinking about Duo, it's kind of like you think about like the potential users, the BDRs, the SDRs, the AEs, right? And so within those, like you also have segments and territories, etc. Like if you think about segments, oftentimes like you have like SMB sales, like handling like 2,000, 3,000 accounts, and then like you have enterprise sales people that are handling like a much smaller book of business, like 50 accounts. The thing that Duo really allows you to do is kind of like collect all of the most relevant signals for all of your accounts. So even if it's only 20 accounts or 50 accounts, you would need to, again, imagine that we have 50 accounts times 5 potential buyers. That's 250 people that you need to keep track of every day, right? Every single day, you need to actually go and monitor 250 people. It's not doable, right? It's like, challenge me, but I don't think that's doable. And with Duo, like even if you're an enterprise seller, we will resurface these most relevant signals to you. And then really like, that's why we're saying that's like, it's human refined or human intuition. In the end, you say, oh, interesting signal here for this company. I don't want to act on it. I want to save it and collect it at the account level, right? And so like now you start collecting a lot more intelligence at the account level to actually break into that account. So it works both ways, right? So like it works for like keeping track of like thousands of people, as well as like keeping track of hundreds of people. But like the world is super dynamic, right? So like every 24 hours, so many things change. And Duo really allows you to capture that dynamism across all of your accounts. And it's actually independent of like how many accounts you want to track, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I loved the most. I said it earlier in the chat, but the fact that it's evaluating things every 24 hours when an SDR without the Iron Man suit is, maybe checking things once a month if they have time on an account.
And as an example, Sarah, for instance, think about it. Even with 50 accounts, if you have 5, potential buyers per account, how can you actually know if there was one of those that wrote, asked a question on a Slack group asking for recommendations for a tool, or if someone from that has used your tool in the past moved to one of these accounts. Like finding these sometimes needles in the haystack, and being on top of it every single day. It's a very data intensive kind of problem that AIs are really good at, but for reps to be on top of all these every single day, it's really, really hard. Things will slip through the cracks for sure.
I think in sales we say it's a lot of luck, right? Because you just got to find the right person and the right
Exactly.
time, and you're kind of taking the luck factor out of it. It's now you can actually just prospect the right people at the right time, and not waste your time on companies that aren't ready to be in a buying cycle because they're just not there yet.
Exactly.
Precisely.
I'm going to zoom out a little and just ask a couple broader questions just about like the state of sales in general. But Joa, I'm curious, what are the most common sales mistakes that you see teams making that AI can help solve?
Yes, so I mean, to start, one of the things that we already mentioned here is just how much reps have on their plate today, right? Like you're asking so much of reps, right? They have so many ongoing conversations, maybe hundreds of email threads going on, that it's actually quite easy to make mistakes or to forget to do something. I would divide it into three main buckets of mistakes. Perhaps the first one is more related to bad habits or laziness, that we still see a lot of folks fall into that, where it's still what everybody can, what it's super easy to do today is to go find the 1,000 VPs of marketing in San Francisco and then email them all with the same messaging, right? And the problem is that everybody else can also do this, and so it's going to be really hard to stand out if you're just doing that. Or another mistake related to that could be not doing enough work in order to really validate that you should reach out to a specific company and that how you should pitch your product, right? So that's the first bucket of mistakes, kind of falling into bad habits and a little bit of laziness. Second bucket, I would say it's about forgetfulness and lack of persistence. We still see a lot of reps that you just might forget to follow up, right? Or a prospect tells you, hey, reach out to me at the end of the quarter. That's when I'll be in a position when I can actually evaluate this. But when you're jumping into 15 calls a day, it's super easy to miss that. And so there's a lot of problems related to that. Just there's so much going on. It's easy enough for things to fall through the cracks, or for reps to just not have it in them to send that email follow-up to that person that if you did, maybe would get back to you. But when you have so many conversations going on, it's hard to do that. And then the third bucket would be just not having the right context or information available to the rep in the middle of the sales process. So this could be, not using the right value propositions to really pitch your product to a specific company because maybe you don't understand enough about their business or what's going on at that specific company, or not doing a great job with handling a specific objection. Maybe you've never seen it before. Maybe you don't have the enablement materials available to you. And so that's another bucket, just not having enough context and information. And for us, these are really areas where AI can help, right? Like when one insight and one thing that we talk a lot about internally is that when you think about most sales reps today, they are at home and what they're doing, it's all happening via computer, right? Like they're writing emails, they're jumping into calls, they might be using a dialer on their computer, they're sending messages on LinkedIn. What this means is that you can instrument all of this and then really be able, now with LLMs, you're able to understand what's really happening. And that means that you can start nudging reps in the right direction and putting up guardrails so that they're making fewer and fewer mistakes, which means folks who will hit their goals and hit quota. So that's how I think about it.
I'm thinking about, I was assigned to like a new industries team, and we had maybe like 15 customers, 10 to 15 customers that were in that new industry, and we knew why they bought, but we were just kind of making a bet that we would be able to break into all these other accounts. And I got like a book of accounts of like 500 or 1,000, a ton of accounts. there was no way for me to be able to take what I had learned from those 10 to 15 current customers and be able to sort that out intelligently, and then be able to apply that to hundreds of companies that had never heard of us or engaged with us or had any kind of experience. And so if I had had a tool like Duo, I really think that I could have just basically said, here's what I know, here's what I think the value prop is, and here are some of the behaviors that I would love if you could identify in this massive list. And I think I probably would have created a ton more pipeline and made a lot more movement instead of spinning my wheels for months and months and months trying to figure out how to break into a new territory, a new industry that, you know, no one at the company had ever sold to before.
No, we hear that from so many reps, Sarah, and especially, let's say, if when you think about, if you're a rep that is just joining a company, then that learning process can take a long time. And oftentimes reps today really don't have a lot of assistance there. And so, yeah, we really built Duo with the rep in mind and really thinking about those type of problems that you just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you have something like this, you don't have to spend as much time onboarding onto all the 15 different technologies that your company uses and also learn product. You can learn a pitch and learn how to have a conversation, and actually be able to sell a whole lot faster. Mika, I see you nodding your head. Did you have anything you wanted to throw in there?
No, but it's like completely agree with you. It's kind of like, think about all of the intelligence, all of the insights that you as an individual rep have that just remains siloed with you and kind of does not propagate to your next list of accounts, right? And it does not propagate to your fellow sellers, right? It's kind of like Duo, like you can invest in terms of like investing a lot of time in the brain of the sales operation, right? So like for SDRs, BDRs, and AEs, and all of a sudden, like, you know, creating a new rep, right? Onboarding a new rep becomes so much easier because all of the content, everything that you've learned for SMB accounts, for mid-market, for enterprise accounts, becomes readily available to the new enterprise SDR that joins your company in whatever, like in Berlin, Germany, and all of a sudden they need to sell in German. And again, imagine how daunting that task would be to actually just now go and collect all of your case studies, all of your objection handling, all of these little things, and kind of like make them readily available to one rep. With Duo, like that enablement, just like that information propagation becomes available like with just like one instruction to do, right? It's like super easy. Yeah, and that's honestly like one of the things that excites me more about Duo. And by the way, to your point, Sarah, like I love like some salespeople are very creative. So they actually think about signals or things that we never thought about. It's like, dang, that's interesting. And with Duo, we give you also that freedom. We give you that power. Think about like the signals that you want to capture. Your imagination is kind of like the limit. So we've seen like very interesting things happen in terms of like signal collection. So yeah, that's what
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be using the same sequence that's written by your manager that they wrote 12 months to 4 years ago. You can be creative in how you want to find the right people, and then how you want to reach out to them, and then you can learn from your mistakes or learn from what's working, which I think is really awesome.
By
We've
the way,
got
just sorry,
Go ahead.
another note there, like which is like I really like that you mentioned that, like that sequence that gets created, and it's kind of like someone thought about it like 6 months ago, 12 months ago, and all of a sudden like we're just acting as it's like this is the gold standard, this is the thing that we need to use. And what is super interesting is like even if companies have all of these like you know, broken tech stack to collect signals, what it ends up happening is like you have like a very colorful lead at the top of the funnel where you actually captured some signal. And all of a sudden, like the way that you engage with them is very black and white. So you completely lost the initial reason to reach out because you're just now just plugging that email address. It's just an email address. And you're just dropping it into like a sequence that was created 12 months ago. And like that very colorful like lead that a lot of like context about them just like becomes like just very pale. And so with the thing with Duo, and that's like why Duo, like the importance of being on top of an only one platform, it's just like not only giving you the signal, but just making that signal available at a click of a single button. Now, like, you know, like your sales becomes way more fun, way more colorful, way more like intent driven and signal based. Now, if you're actually trying to do that, to your point before, where you're actually operating all of these different technologies, you either are a very smart rep and really have like really good time management, and you actually can provide a colorful lead, or like 80% of like reps, you don't have time. So you're running, you have a quota to attain, and like now all of a sudden, like the color of all of your leads just like, fades out, and you're just offering that same template over and over again with like these old school technologies that were built like 10 years ago.
To add on that, we still find a lot of people operating under the model that I just need to find kind of this perfect master sequence, and then it's just about adding more leads to it. And like our take is that's just fundamentally a wrong way to look at go to market. Actually, when you talk with folks that are more like on the B2C side and that are, for instance, planning ad spend on these different platforms, there's a concept of ad fatigue, where they understand that even if you find a super efficient ad, that ad within a few months, the results that you get out of it are going to go down. And so this is like you see this over and over again in that industry, where you're a D2C company that finds this great ad that works really well on Facebook, but this ad always will have a lifetime. Like after 6 months or after a year, like those results will start to decay. And I really believe that to be true also in the context of sales, right? And when you're thinking about that master sequence, some folks are operating under the assumption that we just need to get there and then we're just going to use that sequence forever. The go-to-market tends to be way more dynamic, right? And it's like these channels, as Miko's alluding to, you can think of it as these channels have a price and that's constantly changing. And so maybe email gets more saturated. You have to go and like do more calling, or maybe you want to be heavier on social. And so there's a very dynamic nature to go to market. And so you always need to be iterating. You always need to be thinking of new approaches, new copy, and figuring out how to best resonate with people, given what's happening in the market. Right? And so Duo is also built with that in mind, right? It's pushing us away from kind of this master sequence approach and just getting to that point, but like understanding that things are always going to be dynamic. You always need to be experimenting with different signals, different copy, different markets, and then we should be okay with that, right? And accept that that's the reality of things.
Yeah, there's that concept in human psychology where it's like if you have your sticky note on your mirror with your mantra and you read it every morning, like it only works for like a week, because then visually it just becomes background noise, and you no longer are reading the mantra to like create the new habit. Like in order to really create change with yourself, like it can't just be one visual stimulus, because it'll change, which is why ads fizzle out or copy fizzles out. And then on top of that, you've got people who you post it on LinkedIn, you see your competitor doing it, you get a bunch of copycats. And so if you're not staying like ahead of the curve and really speaking to something that someone actually cares about, that's, I think, like the main thing. If you really want to stand out, talk to them about them, talk to the person about what is going on in their lives. It's like the most obvious sales advice, but if I look at my inbox right now, there's a bunch of people who are pitching me things that I have no idea why it would be relevant. And I don't have the time or the brain space to try to connect the dots for myself. And I don't think that it probably is.
Yeah. No, and that's also why for us, like we think that Duo has the potential to improve the experience on both sides, on the buyer and on the seller, right? Like it's exactly what you're saying, Sarah. Like on your inbox, you have all of these messages that you don't quite understand why somebody's reaching out to you. Doesn't make sense. Also for the seller, like even if you were to accept to go on a call, you probably wouldn't be qualified. They would have wasted their time. And so if we can remove that, right? If you can reach out to the people that are actually that you believe that your product or service can solve their problems, like that can make the experience better for both sides, right? And so for us, Duo is also about trying to move in that direction.
Yeah. We are 4 minutes over time. I know that a lot of people hung out, 95 people hung out to keep listening to this discussion, but I recognize we've got a lot of sellers on this call who probably have meetings to prep for, phone calls to take, deals to close. Maybe some of the people who are on this webinar also have some deals to close. I think, Mika, you've got a lot of leads that your team needs to follow up on. If you didn't get your question answered, don't worry. Someone from the Amplemarket team will reach out. Make sure if you are curious to learn more, you go to the website and request a demo or reach out to your customer success manager. And don't worry, the recording will be available. It'll be sent out probably sometime tomorrow if we're lucky today. Depends on how fast Zoom wants to process the recording. But that is it for today. Thank you so much, guys, for the wonderful walkthrough of Duo. I think it's going to be really cool. I have been craving software like this for so long. And I think if you go through the chat that has blown up, I think there's a lot of people who have been craving it as well. So without further ado, I think we can all say goodbye. But thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. And we will
Thank you,
see you
Sarah.
later.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sarah,
so much,
for
Sarah.
moderating.
for
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all for being here. Cheers.
Yes, thank
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Cheers.
Bye.